Nissan Primera is a mid-sized family/business/repmobile car built by Nissan from 1990. The P10, which is the first generation of the Primera, it was a super modern car for its day. Back in 1990, it had all of the very latest tech and what you'd expect on a car, such as 16-valve fuel-injected engines and a very fancy front multi-link suspension. Like the Nissan Bluebird before it, it was built up in the northeast of England in Sunderland, in the Nissan factory, where they really had gone to show that it is possible to build a high-quality car in Great Britain. It just feels like Bluebird plus plus. They could have called it the Bluebird, but I guess they were trying to get rid of that name and they called it the Primera, which is basically Spanish for first or one. Be like, yeah, Primera's it's the best. Forget about the old Bluebird, that was for granddads. The Primera was available as this 4-door saloon, but you could also get it as a 5-door hatchback, which gave you a bit more practicality at the back where you could get more stuff in the boot. But to be fair, the boot on this is massive. You could also get it as an estate car, but the estate car wasn't really a Primera. It was something called an Avenir, and it was built in Japan, so although it looked a bit Primera-y, it wasn't the same car. So this car is a 4-speed automatic, so it's very just smooth and easy to drive. You know, it's just the go pedal, the stop pedal, the steering's light, you've got great visibility. There was also a 5-speed manual. It has got power steering, but at lower speeds it feels weighty, but then as you speed up, even sort of now at 20 miles an hour, it's much lighter. You can feel there's a lot of play in it, you know, it's not sharp steering. The ride quality is pretty nice on this car. It goes over speed bumps pretty well. You know, it's not a modern car with thin tyres or anything. These seats are quite comfortable as well. They're actually more comfortable than the seats in the Nissan Juke that I was driving recently. And I'm sat on this beaded seat cover, which was just all the rage in the early 90s. It's doing its job in that it's really quite warm in here, and I think it's keeping my back sweat free. So to put it into context, it was going up against cars like the Ford Sierra and the Vauxhall Cavalier, and those cars at that time were a bit dated. I mean, obviously later on you had the Mondeo and the Vectra, but when this Primera came out, it was super fancy and modern. So this car is sort of on the mid to high spec level. It's a 2-litre GS. They had all sorts of different letters and things back in the 90s, didn't they? The L, the LS, the LX, GS, GT, and so on. So you've got 4 electric windows. The way it's set up, this little switch here, I can put my hand on the door handle, and then my thumb can control the electric window switch. Weirdly, you've also got the window switches down here in the centre as well, but that's for the other doors and so on. One touch on the driver's side, so I can just, it's going down. Windy manual sunroof, which is a nice touch. You've got the electric aerial that comes on when you put the stereo on, which is just a very cool 80s and 90s thing. It doesn't have aircon, which is a bit of a shame on a day like today, but got electrically adjustable wing mirrors, which are these kind of like quite neat, small, modern looking wing mirrors. So there's only 2 blanks that I can find, and I assume they would be for heated seats. I like the interior. It's very black and 90s, and it's not actually obviously that interesting to look at, but you've got this kind of like quirky looking steering wheel 3-pointer in front of you with a huge space for all the dials and so on. There's no sort of trip computer or anything. You've got this tiny little LCD clock in front of you. Now that would only have been in some pretty high spec Mercs and stuff back then. But what you do get is a very nicely laid out dash with lots of information. Now, you've got a check engine light, but it's a Nissan, so that probably doesn't even have a bulb in it. I was just looking at this. I've got a great big sun visor here that blocks the entire view of the road. There aren't any cup holders in here, but there are lots of little cubby holes. There's one here in front of the centre console. You've got spaces for your cassettes in the dashboard, and a little cubby hole, very small one in the centre console here. You've got a pretty reasonable glove box, and then Mr. Furious Driving would love this T-shelf here. In the old days, instead of an airbag and safety during a crash, you could just have a cup of tea on the dashboard instead. It meant that you could have a little sip as you went along, and then if you did have a crash, you'd get boiling tea in your face. It is now time to ask backseat JJ what he thinks of the back of the P10 Nissan Primera. What are you doing? Yeah, I'll be at the meeting as soon as possible, as soon as I can get this pleb to drive me there. Okay then. Okay, yes. Yeah, see you in Zurich. What, this? It's just the award that this car won, the Festival of the Unexceptional 2022 Repmobile of the Year.
Congratulations to Christian.
Oh, you want to know about the back? Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. So head and leg room. It's designed clearly just to fit two 6-footers, one behind the other. I can feel my hair touching the roof and my legs are just touching the back of the seat. It's got some very nice, comfy cloth type seats. There isn't that much back here, but there is, of course, an ashtray, because that was all important back in the day when everybody smoked, including your kids in the back. There's no door pockets on the sides and there's no pockets on the back of the seats, but there is this very nice armrest here, which folds down and you can sit in comfort. And what is nice is that they've got a slot here for the seatbelt anchors, which means that they don't like start crushing all the upholstery and everything when you flatten the seats. Yeah, and that's about it back here. Okay, cheers mate. Thank you for that. So you couldn't really get a slow Primera. I mean, this is the automatic, so it's a little bit hampered in performance, but they were all 1.6 and above, and there was a carburetor version, but almost all of them were fuel injection, 16 valve, all very modern. I think it would probably feel a lot quicker with the manual. The 0 to 60s, you know, around 10 or 11 seconds, so that's perfectly fine, isn't it? So there was a diesel version available, but that was very slow. I think it was non-turbo. You'd get very good MPG and you could do infinity miles in it before it blew up. And if you did want a performance Primera, they did something called the EZX, which later became the EGT. That had 150 horsepower. Now that would have felt pretty quick because obviously, like I say, it's a light car, and I think that would have been a pretty nice car. Primera history, it goes P10 like this one, then they facelifted it, then they did the P11, and then they facelifted that up until like late 90s, early 2000s, and then they made the P12, which was the great big crazy looking car that, you know, had the spaceship dashboard and everything. In the 80s and 90s, Nissan were absolutely at their peak of designing reliable, well-built cars. Nowadays, Nissans are not quite so robust. The RAC recognised this car as being just utterly reliable, so I'm cruising along at 50 miles an hour now, and it's actually pretty quiet in here. Now I'm getting to sort of 60 miles an hour, quite a bit of wind noise, but it's still cruising along with just 2,500 RPM. In 1993, they facelifted the Primera. They called it the Series 2, and it just had a slightly different grille and some other little changes. They did make it safer. They put the side impact bars and the airbags in, and ABS as standard as well, which was a big deal back then, to the point where Nissan made a funny little advert about it. I wish they made car adverts like they used to. It's a lost art, I think. And they didn't seem to take themselves quite so seriously back then either. The Ford Mondeo, which didn't come out until something like 1993, they benchmarked this Nissan Primera in order to design the Mondeo and try and get it up to the standards of the Primera. So it was praise indeed for Nissan that Ford had used this car as their watermark. So in order to sort of meet the exacting European standards of what people expect over this side of the world, Nissan designed the Primera to be fun to drive. And it is. It has a multi-link suspension up front, which was unheard of for Nissan at least. It was all designed by the guy who did the R35 GTR. He knows what he's doing, basically. Although obviously I was saying like the steering, like you can do this when you're going straight ahead, but once the steering does bite, so to speak, you can kind of like have fun with this car. Back in the 1990s, any self-respecting car company that built a car like this entered it into the British Touring Car Championship, and Nissan were no different. They had the Primera in from, I think, 1991. It did have some success in its early days. It never really won the championship up until its later guise as the P11. It did have Tiff Needell driving it, so it had the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tiff Needell, behind the wheel. So that's the Nissan Primera. It's a car that's, you know, the original one's all but forgotten now. You don't see them anywhere, and most people don't really remember them, but they were a very competent car for the time, and better than a lot of the competition that was around. So if you can get your hands on one, please do, and just keep it in good condition, keep hold of it, and just keep them for the future generations to come. Big thank you to Chris for bringing this car to the channel. If you want to see a video about a 1980s Nissan 300ZX, then click up here, and I'll see you in the next video.